Former President Trump returning to court today on this beautiful day for his criminal hush money trial. We're expecting to hear more from David Pecker, former publisher of the National Enquirer. It comes as the Supreme Court is hearing arguments about whether Trump has absolute immunity. Joining us now to discuss is James Sample, professor at Hofstra Law. James, great to see you. How are you?
Good. How are you, Chris?
Well, I'm going to start with that. I'm sure you heard what was going on with the Supreme Court yesterday and the fact that absolute immunity is being presented or in any way argued for any human being just sounds absurd on the level.
It does sound absurd on the level, and I think that we are in danger in our discourse in America right now of kind of falling victim to the classic boiled frog metaphor, where we just sort of treat these things as if they're normal. We normalize the idea that yesterday in the United States Supreme Court, a country that fought a revolution against a monarchy, right? That's the founding of the nation. It was debated yesterday in the Supreme Court on a serious level as to whether or not a president is immune if he, for example, orders the assassination of his political rival, whether a president is immune if he sells nuclear secrets to a foreign adversary. Those were serious questions addressed in a serious, as if normal way, and there's nothing normal about it.
And that's, I mean, you're a professional. I'm not. I'm not a legal scholar or a legal professional or have any type of attorney background with the exception of my stepfather being an attorney. But listening to it, it almost feels like, you're in a parallel universe, that Elena Kagan seems to only be the only voice of reason that's like, the founding fathers, they didn't put absolute immunity, in because the things you're talking about are so absurd, yet these arguments were being made yesterday. And I guess you have to, at some point, question some of these justices, how they can be on tape, knowing that they're being that these minutes are being recorded for history, to talk about things like this in this way.
I couldn't agree with you more about the parallel universe. I mean, I was thinking as I listened yesterday, this is sort of law through the looking glass, like almost a meta kind of moment where you have to ask yourself, are we serious here? And it was kind of a schizophrenic day. I mean, you had this split screen that was extraordinary of the president in downtown Manhattan in the hush money trial, and then in D.C., this discussion of vast, crazy hypotheticals. And one of the things that was most interesting and most jarring to me was that the justices, several of the justices in the conservative majority, seemed utterly disinterested in talking about the facts of this case and only interested in talking about the hypotheticals and the idea of what could happen down the road, and two sort of different frames. Which would be the greater risk? The risk of a president who's going to turn the office into a crime center, that was sort of Ketanji Brown Jackson's version, or a risk in which there would be endless prosecutions of ex-presidents.
And you almost want to say, we've made it for about 200 years so far unscathed, so it doesn't seem as though we have to, giving future presidents the opportunity or the option of committing crimes and then being exonerated for it under these terms. It just seemed, like I said, but bizarre beyond belief. Let's talk about the hush money trial right now, talking about bizarre. You had David Pecker, who is kind of one of the key witnesses for the prosecution right there, former head of the National Enquirer, someone who at one point, it's so bizarre, some of the things you're hearing coming out of this courtroom. Is he the linchpin witness for the prosecution?
I don't know that he's the linchpin, Chris. I think he's a phenomenal setup man. I think the closer here is going to be Michael Cohen, but I think that the prosecutors did a masterful job of starting and laying out this overall scheme with David Pecker. And I think in some respects, the most powerful aspect of Pecker's testimony, I mean, certainly the facts that he lays out and the fact that he's in the room in Trump Tower with Michael Cohen, with the former president, engaging in these negotiations, that's all critical from an evidentiary standpoint. But from an atmospheric standpoint, and particularly vis-a-vis the jurors, some of the witnesses to come, including most prominently Michael Cohen, clearly have an axe to grind. There's clearly some personal animus. He went to prison because of Donald Trump, whereas David Pecker was saying, he's still my friend.
And let me I'm going to ask you two quick points right here, because I thought these were very important coming from the testimony yesterday. A, we hear 2018. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, other administration officials asking if they should continue the contract with Karen McDougal, who was paid $150,000. And B, the fact that Trump has not said anything negative, even yesterday saying that David Pecker is doing a fantastic job, does that kind of intimate that Pecker's probably got more than he's actually alluded to?
It's very possible that that's the case, and that Donald Trump wants to make sure that he can mitigate the damages or damage that Pecker can do.
To think about there being more that he might be withholding is troubling in itself. James, great to see you. Have a great weekend. We will talk with you next week because obviously there are no shortage of topics to discuss.